Okay, welcome everyone to the Town of Telluride Town Council Budget Meeting. It is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. It is 9:04 a.m. We are in person here at Rebecca Hall at 113 West Columbia Avenue in Telluride, but also hybrid and online. First item for the meeting is the roll call, and starting to my right.
Ellen 11.
Jesse Rearguez.
Geneva Shonett.
Mian Fee.
Ashley Von Sprecken.
And Teddy Erico. Item number 1 on the agenda, work session 1A, discussion of capital funds. We have Kaylee, Colette, and Zoe to lead this one.
Yeah, I'll hand it off pretty quickly. Just always want to start off with a huge thank you to staff and of course our finance team, Colette and Kaylee, for putting this together and presenting a good presentation today. And we're available for questions. We have a lot of staff here that are available for questions should you have them.
Thank you, Zoe. So we have 3 capital funds now that we will be presenting to you guys today. Our capital improvement fund, our street, alley, and bridge fund, which is really a sub-fund of the capital fund as it's mainly funded by a transfer from the capital improvement fund. And then our newly created reserve capital improvement fund, which was created to move 15% of those revenues that were going into the open space fund into. Our goals of the budget process for the capital fund are really to time stockpile reserves to be used in future years for large capital projects and not to have to go out and finance them. So here on the right is kind of the 3 parts of our budget process. We started out with our town council goals and objectives. In August, we're now in the capital improvement section, and then at the next meeting, we will move on to our operating budgets. So here's our timeline. August 27th, we did goals and objectives. August 29th, we just did a general overview of the budget and every fund. Today, we're looking at the capital funds. On October 3rd, we will be looking at the general fund. October 8th, all of our enterprise funds. October 17th, all the remaining funds, and then adoption on November 19th.
So, were you
No,
going
go
to
ahead,
speak
go
here?
right ahead.
Zoe? Okay, so for the capital fund, we have adopted a policy to have at least a 25% reserve balance of expenses. The original 2024 budget had reserves of 14.18%, which was 2.2 million. Due to projects not being completed and more RET revenue than we had originally budgeted for, our projected ending fund balance is going to be 10.6 million. So we're going into 2025 with a pretty healthy fund balance. Our proposed budget reserve fund balance for 2025 is going to be 13.3%. or 1.3 million, but we do feel comfortable with that, just even though our goal is 25%, just kind of based on how things generally get spent. So.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. We work hard with our timelines to be accurate, given proposals and other things. There can be hiccups to that. And that's what we saw in 2024. While we need some of these projects to happen, just as a effect of other capital projects, and we need to keep those timelines. That's our budget. The other piece is with the capital reserves and the gondola. We do have some gondola expenses within our capital budget, knowing that the intention is also that the capital reserves are intended for the gondola as well. So we feel comfortable with this.
So just kind of a little overview of the capital fund. It accounts for general capital projects, general government capital projects, economic cultural development, public works and government facility maintenance. And it also provides subsidies to fund the transportation fund. And it is primarily funded by real estate transfer tax. And then this is just a little breakdown, because I know it gets a little confusing where all of our money gets diverted to. So RET funds the capital fund. So right off the top, we take 20% from rent and 5% of that goes to open space. And then 15% of that goes to the reserve capital improvement fund. And then we also transfer 3% for administration fees to the general fund. And then you'll just kind of see on the left that the capital fund also funds a street, bridge and alley fund, capital projects, transportation fund. And then historically has also given money towards the wastewater fund, water fund, and Sunnyside just to subsidize those funds. And then this is just a chart of kind of our budgeted versus actual, capital fund is a little bit more of a moving target, not really knowing how rets are going to come in and projects getting delayed. So you can see in the last couple of years, we've definitely built up a pretty high fund balance, just kind of as a combination of both of those things, just revenues coming in high and then projects kind of getting pushed along to the next year. So we have a pretty healthy capital fund going into 2025.
Okay, we'll move on to our real estate transfer tax revenue overview and projections, if there are any questions.
I have one question about the capital fund balance. Is it, I understand it's higher because we collected more money, but is it also high because we didn't complete projects that we had budgeted? Okay.
Combination of both of those things. Okay, so our real estate transfer tax budget for 2024 is $6.2 million. As of August 31st, we had collected almost $6.3 million. And since then, we've collected almost another $500,000. So we are recommending a projected year end of almost $8.1 million. This would assume that we receive an average of $450,000 a month for the next 4 months. Above that for September, so this might even be a low projection. And then for 2025, we would recommend a budget of $6.6 million. We think that with interest rates being very attainable and our revenue hasn't come below this since 2018. And then here again, our budget in the blue versus actual real estate tax revenue in red. We've come in every year for the last 10 years higher than what we budgeted. And then here's just a breakdown of our real estate transfer tax revenues for the past 10 years. And we have not collected less than $1,000 a month. So we also have been fortunate enough to receive some grants to help fund some of these capital projects. Almost every year, the transportation crew gets a grant for 80% of the cost of a new bus or two. I think we have one that's rolling over from 2023 into our 2024 numbers, and then 2 buses for the 2025 budget, and then a grant that pays for 80% of those. We also have received a grant from CDOT to offset the cost of the Public Works facility remodel in the amount of $300,000 for this year, and then $1.9 million for 2020.
Congratulations, Public Works.
Nice
That's a
job.
big grant.
And then we also just every year have a small amount of revenue coming into this fund for sale of some of our equipment. So 2025 budget, we have total revenues $8.9 million. Okay, now we will move on to all of the capital requests for 2025 for capital fund. We'll start there. Oh, hold on a second. One more slide.
So this is just an overview again of revenues and kind of where some of that money goes. So again, the capital fund funds the transportation fund and the street, bridge and alley fund. A little bit of money comes into the street, bridge and alley fund from elsewhere, which you'll see later, but For the capital fund, our revenues are the 3% real estate transfer tax, 80% of that staying in the capital fund and 20% leaving to the reserve capital improvement fund and open space. And then we've got contributions and transfers. So approximately 50% of the capital fund is transferred out. So I know it looks like we've got a lot of revenue, but it is supporting a lot of other things as well. So the street, bridge and alley fund, transportation funds, and so. And then again, just, I know that it gets confusing. So just another little visual for you guys. But we just went over that, so.
And then just a few points about where we are right now, or kind of how we started the year after our audit. We have a beginning fund balance that's $1.1 million higher than we projected even last fall during the budget process. And then 2024 had mid-year budget amendments, which were carry forwards from unspent balances for 2023 projects. Okay, now we will move on and let Stephanie and Ryan speak about their requests for Parks and Recreation capital projects.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. So just a quick overview for existing members of council and newer members. Do I need to be closer to this?
Probably.
I'll speak loudly. So Parks and Rec Commission is tasked with weighing in on capital projects on an annual basis. So they met in August and staff got their input on what was requested in the capital budget. So this reflects the consensus of the Parks and Rec Commission and supported by town staff as well. We do have some projects in process this year, which will carry into next year in terms of project completion. So I'll start with those items. First of all, I'm not going to go in order because the order doesn't reflect chronological. So parks projects of 30,000, that's an annual item that is an amount that's set ahead of time, and then staff and the Parks and Rec Commission prioritize which small projects they want to accomplish with those funds. So that's the 30,000 that you'll see every year in the 5-year capital plan. The project that we are deep in right now is the core area improvements, specifically the warming hut and washstand. Ryan is leading that project. We are through design. The design's been approved by both Parks and Rec Commission and the HARC board, and that is for a simplified warming hut. Just for those who have seen this project since 2021, it is now a single-story building. It's replacing existing facilities, which is the warming hut, bathrooms, and washstand. We also now have a Zamboni garage in that location, which is something we're able to add in. And what's not included is that second story for the youth hangout, because we now have the shed project at the Voodoo, which Ryan is also very involved with to serve that need for the local youth, at least for now. And then, so we are through design, the building permit's been submitted, and we are actively working on pricing, scheduling, and hopefully executing a construction contract to start this fall. Obviously, that project can't be completed this year. It's going to take several months, so that will carry into next year, which is that just shy of 1.1 million. The total budget is 1.8 million. So we have spent a good amount of that on design so far and to start construction this year. So that's an existing budget of 1.8 that we're just spreading between 2 years. So not a new request.
Can you remind me what the total cost was when we did have the additional floor on it?
2.75.
Okay, perfect.
I went
Couldn't
through a lot
remember.
of
I couldn't
history.
remember what the delta
But
was
with
there.
But with the requirement that we fundraise $1 million.
Right. Okay.
Which we didn't. So that's the warming hut washstand project. Yeah.
Just really quick about the Zamboni garage. Where's the Zamboni now? Like, how is that gonna affect your current operations? I'm assuming improve them, but I'm just curious what happens with the Zamboni now.
Yep, so we have 2 Zambonis. One lives in the pavilion and the other one lives in the 3-bay garage, which is part of off of our administrative building.
Okay.
So not really adjoining or adjacent to any of the ice rinks. This will put it adjacent to one of the outdoor ice rinks. We also, and this year, are getting a new Zamboni to replace one of our aging Zambonis. So we will now have 2 electric Zambonis, and this will provide infrastructure for that old electric Zamboni in that space as well,
Cool.
which we don't really have the capability for in the old 3-bay garage.
And this new one, new electric, is trading out our old gasoline.
Yep.
So both
Great.
will be
Awesome.
electric vehicles. Staying on the core area, and just as a description, the core area is what we call the oval, the warming hut, the tensile membrane, even the skate park, that whole area of the park, kind of the northwest quadrant of the park. So staying in that section of the park, we currently, in this year's budget, have funds for safety netting on Warner Field outfield. This is a big item that's called out in our town parks master plan, and it would allow some overlapping uses of the field for adult softball, for example, and the oval and warming hut area, so that we can have private events at the same time as softball without concerns of fly balls ending up in people's receptions. So that is in this year's budget. We are still hoping to get through design, but we would not execute that until next year. So that's a carryover of funds between 2024 and 2025. So once again, already budgeted, partially spent this year, and rolling over remaining funds for next year. Okay, and staying on core area, now talking about new projects. This is the oval construction. This has been in the 5-year capital ever since our master plan was approved in 2020. And now it's getting to the point of wanting to actually execute it. So we have design work already completed, and this project, I'll let Ryan describe what it entails. It's been thoroughly vetted during the master plan process. In 2021, we did a design all the way through construction documents, and there's benefits of trying to accomplish it at the same time as finishing the warming hut, which is why we're proposing it in 2025. So since that's potentially a new project for some of you, do you want to describe what that includes?
Yeah, it includes a concrete surface, which will allow the basketball courts, which are quite old and need to be updated, moved to that new area. It also allows other types of court sports such as pickleball, and will take some pressure off the 2 existing pickleball tennis courts that we have that are quite popular nowadays. It will also have a curb around that concrete perimeter, which will allow us to more easily make that outdoor ice rink in the wintertime, and also use a lot less water in the process. The area also includes a ton of site drainage, which if you've ever used the core area after a rainstorm, it can get quite soggy over there. So it's really going to drastically improve drainage as the entire park really drains that northwest corner, and then includes a new grass area along the northern third.
Yeah, so that's an important fact, is that it is turning the grassy oval to a hard surface, but about 2/3 of that surface would become hard surface for multi-use sport courts. And then the other third will still be greenscape. And that was something that we heard was very important during our master plan process. So we tried to find that balance to provide the recreational needs, but also to have some green space over there for some of the private and special event uses that occur in that area currently.
How many square feet of green space is that going to be then?
I would say roughly 1/3, 2/3. I don't have the exact square footage off the top of my
So
head.
you guys have a plan.
Is that in here?
I'm sorry, I'm not part of the meeting, but it's in the packet under warming hut item. There's a site plan that shows the oval as well. So that is on page. Somebody able to share?
Sorry,
that
I'm
in
like going
the
through.
Zoom? It's on page.
I was just looking at the master plan. Is it
I
different?
don't think
Has
there's
it
a,
been
It's
amended?
page 26. There's a link embedded.
oh,
Okay.
So
And are
continue.
are we replicating that loss of gathering space for the community elsewhere in the park?
Well, the hardscape can serve that purpose as well, so multi-use, once again. And then we also have our fields and other areas that can be reserved. I
So
mean,
there-
we do have a lot of green space. in the
So there
park.
won't be like programming that would preclude people from being able to rent that whole pavilion area for a memorial or anything like that.
So
There was, correct? Like there wouldn't be programming on the tennis courts or on the basketball courts, so that if somebody wanted to have a memorial or a graduation party or anything like that, like it will be easy
So
for them
we-
to rent the whole thing
We
out.
very rarely see people use the full oval surface for private events.
Okay.
We usually see people set up around the tensile membrane and the grassy. Can somebody help
Mhm.
share the packet, or do I need to get on the meeting?
I mean,
The link doesn't work on here. It's not
Mine
like
just
a live
I'm-
link, but
It's like, it's just from the town park master plan.
okay.
It's more
It's a
detailed.
download.
It's a more detailed section.
I mean, I can't click it, so.
Finance, are you able to help?
I can either.
Eleanor was able to look at it.
It's
Yeah.
submitted
Looks the
through
same.
Hold on, I'm gonna
page
try and
26.
send it to you, actually.
I can look at it later.
I
Sorry,
opened it up from the
Tiffany.
packet, Tiffany.
So it's page 26 of the packet.
There's just a link on it.
Okay, I see it. I'll
Great.
make sure.
Thank you.
Town park master.
Thanks.
Oh,
So
I have a
that's
question.
not
Sorry,
local.
I need
Thank
to
you.
share. Just.
That was the right page though, thank you.
Oh,
Okay, so you can see now that the shade structure that's labeled as the tensile membrane. And then the old warming hut is shown in hashed lines over there. That's going to be going away, and that would be an improved picnic area slash use for informal slash private events. And then that green space you can see is between the hardscape and the shade structure, and where the concrete currently is under the shade structure, and then a expanded kind of bump out area to the west. So this is what was called out in the master plan and further developed in 2021 to try and meet the multiple needs and uses. But me and I would see most of the private events still occurring on that northern side that has some greenscape still next to it.
Are you planning on keeping the existing basketball court, or will that become grass?
So that is proposed to stay a hard surface. It has a lot of special event use on it as well that requires a hard surface. So that could be reprogrammed for court sports that require smaller dimensions. That could be a pickleball court, for example, separate from what might happen on the oval. But the main goal is to get standard size basketball courts, because that current, Ryan called it courts. It's not even courts currently. It's not even a full-size basketball court. And then the new warming hut location, which has been obviously vetted quite a bit in the last few years. That's the same location as what was previously proposed, and that would be on the western side of the oval surface. And then demolishing the existing warming hut will really help with the ingress egress into the park, and how it's pretty difficult to get around that building currently in the existing warming hut. So all this is just following through on the master plan and getting a lot more detailed. But what you're looking at now for the oval, that was all developed in 2021.
And I'm assuming, because you just mentioned that, we're gonna keep the old basketball court for as a hardscape, because that's where a lot of tents that I work in live, that the tenting for like the kids areas and the other, I'm thinking about glamping for Blues and Brews, they're just gonna utilize the hardscape space for those activities rather than being on the green space.
Correct.
And then I just had one other thing. I know that we're removing the existing warming hut and all the bathrooms over there. One thing to keep in mind in that process, since we have this shade structure there still, is I know there's not going to be like bathrooms and stuff set up there, but having water, like a spigot so that you can access water from there might be a good idea, especially if you're still envisioning events happening in the shade structure and on that green space. Because right now, all the water and everything's going to move to that new spot.
It's not much further though.
Yeah, it's pretty close, but we can make note of that.
I
Just
mean,
an
it's
idea.
pretty far if you have to carry
If
a lot
you-
of water.
Or if you're trying to run a hose or something like that, just an idea.
We'll make
that-
note of that.
I don't think you need to have any structure, but maintaining like a water there, just so that people then can still utilize it for events and stuff like that.
Because it's all part of the larger master plan, the plan to sort of reduce the size of the pond and make that more of a hangout area all around the pond would that be like in multiple future years or next year, just so that we can understand some of the balances that would take place?
Yeah, so we
Of
have,
course, depends
I
if
don't
we
think
approve it, but
our 5-year plan is in what's in your packet, but it doesn't call out specific projects by name other than region of the park. So we've invested a lot in the core area, especially if as proposed for next year gets approved. And then we would start working again in the core area on the pond is currently slated for 2028. And that would include additional picnic areas. Before that point in 2026, we do have some funds slated. Obviously, a 5-year plan is looked at every year, but looking at the park gateway, pathway lighting, the toddler playground is a great facility, but it's right in the way of all the trying to improve access into that part of the park. So we have that currently in 2026 at the same time as looking at updating our main playground and seeing if we can consolidate facilities. So yes, we do have future plans for the core area, but what the priority would be for 2025 would be to finish the warming hut and wash stand facility, and then hopefully get going on the oval improvements. And the recreational, what that provides to the recreational needs and community is really the driving force behind how this was designed and a priority for our Parks and Rec Commission.
And just to answer your questions too, that was asked earlier. I mean, we don't have our management plan of this area figured out, but I promise you we can come up with a management plan that will balance the sport recreational needs with the special event needs, whether it's a birthday party, memorial, graduation party, all those existing uses that happen.
Yeah, I think I just want to go on the record, and you guys have heard me say this since the master plan was created, so bear with me, but we are having more and more spaces that the community gathered taken away from us within the town of Telluride, and the costs are going up. And so I think it's just essential that we continue to keep in mind that we need the people that live and work here to be able to gather and form those social relationships. And that this was a huge component of that. And if we need it for recreation, I am overruled, but I just want to be really mindful that we have to make sure that we are increasing the number of places where people can gather, not continuing to decrease them as town gets more compressed. So that's all.
And this is a big balance too. With the netting, there's 34 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday nights, 8 Saturdays between mid-May to end of July that we block that very important area out because of the softball conflict. So we're really trying to look at this holistically and really expand our opportunities.
Right. Thank you.
Multi-use is our goal for pretty much everything in the park.
Right.
And that would be the goal here too. And Ryan said recreation and special event, but the other category is private events. And the core area space is one of the few options that people go for private uses, and there's no fee currently, and that's a space that we see a lot of private uses, which I know are important to the community as well.
Perfect.
All right, now we'll go back to, thank you Tiffany for showing that. So going back to the list of what else is proposed for 2025, we already talked about the big ones. We have some projects that are more of kind of maintenance, but they have a larger cost, which Ryan can speak to. So first one would be the pavilion improvements, waste recapture and boiler replacement at $65,000. I do want to note that that's the full project cost. We're hoping to use up to $25,000 from the Energy Mitigation Fund, and Ryan will describe why that's relevant to this. So I believe what Kaylee presented earlier showed a transfer from the Energy Mitigation Fund under the revenue line. So this would be partially funded by those, by that revenue or that fund that helps with energy efficiency. So go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so this, as Stephanie mentioned, a 2-part project. The first part being the replacement of a boiler that's currently 15 plus years old. It's a fairly high use boiler at over 6,000 therms, or roughly billing of about $8,500 a year. So a lot larger than what an office building or some other smaller projects might have. We currently have maintenance cost of about 1/3 of the value of this existing boiler just to get it up to snuff, and it's crucial to the ice rink operation, so it's one we need to stay up and running. And the exciting part about the waste heat recapture is the ice rink plant, which was put in during original construction. It generates a ton of excess heat in order to cool the floor, which does seem a little counterintuitive. But the plant came with a heat exchanger and a pump, and has the ability to just tie into that. So half the project's already complete, and it will preheat all of the hot water and glycol for that replacement boiler. So it has a pretty quick ROI, the ability to save tons of therms. It's a pretty exciting project.
Works towards our climate action plan goals.
Yeah.
Any questions on that project? And then there's a few items at the pool, which are definitely on the necessary maintenance for a facility that we want to last a long, long time. So Ryan can describe both of those.
So in 2023, we replaced the plaster on our rec pool, which was quickly degrading. We used a new product, which is more of a polymer type solution. It was originally made for intense freeze thaw climates, which ours is. It has proven to be much more resilient than the original plaster material. It has 5 times the life expectancy and warranty. So rather than going from a 5-year warranty, we go to a 25-year for less than twice the cost. So it's a pretty good return on investment. The lap pool, which we're proposing to redo in 2025, is essentially over 10 years into 5 years. So I feel like we did a pretty good job extending that, and this will severely decrease our service intervals on that. We're also going to do a bunch of tile work in the lap pool and the rec pool, which we weren't able to get done in 2023. And that also utilizes that same polymer material in replace of grout, which is also super susceptible to the freeze thaw damage, and has proven so far in the rec pool to be a lot better materials. And we definitely get some cost savings by doing both of those at the same time, as there's only a handful of contractors in the entire country that do this kind of work. So they will have to be brought in.
I assume that this project would take place in the spring.
Actually, we're looking probably at in August. I'll be able to go out
Okay.
to bid, once the budget's approved. But spring is really, temperatures are really specific for this project. When we redid the rec pool, which was kind of an emergency in 2023, we ended up closing the pool for a couple weeks, which is something we definitely want to avoid with this planned project. But given that, and speaking with potential contractors, the August window would probably lead to a much better end result than an April or early May project.
So would it impact pool users in any way? Would it
No, our
diminish
policy
their
is to schedule
window?
it, like the
day after you
they'll
close?
move
Late
in there.
August.
Yeah, late August.
Cool.
Yeah, once school starts.
And with all these projects, scheduling in Town Park around existing uses. And that's part of why we sometimes need to carry projects over from one year to another if we don't hit those deadlines or get contractors on board. We have very short windows when we can get anything done, and we've gotten really good at winter construction. The stage was built in the winter. The pavilion expansions have all happened in the winter. The warming hut will happen in the winter. So campground facilities. So yeah, we have very tight windows because we try and have minimal impacts on existing uses. So our total request for 2025 is 2.9. I do want to point out that only about 1.65 of that is new money. The remainder is carryover funds from 2024 that have already been budgeted that we would like to spend next year instead. And thank you all for your great questions and suggestions. If you have any further thoughts on any of these projects that are slated, we're always open to input.
Great.
I thought that, and I could be wrong, but I feel like at a Parks and Rec meeting, you guys had mentioned that there was about $36,000 left over from, I don't know if it was wristband fees or something that you always allotted to the parks projects that the Parks and Recs board just approved every year. So is this that money, or is this in addition to the money that you guys have in like your reserve?
So we haven't had, so the Festival Site Improvement Fund so revenue that comes into that is the admission fees. And then there's direct expenses that get covered for Parks O&M, our full operating and maintenance expense account. This will be talked about, I think, in the restricted funds, but just to give a quick overview. And then law enforcement expenses associated with special events gets paid for completely out of there as well. And then any money that's left goes into festival site management and or projects. We have not had a balance since COVID for various reasons. So there has been no project money. We are proposing an increase in admission fees for 2025, which will be discussed at a future meeting. And I'm hopeful that we can start to build a balance again and use that for appropriate projects, but we have not had a project balance. So this is all capital fund.
I know I heard it at some point, but I didn't know if it was like 5 years ago or
Haven't
2
had a
years
balance in a long
ago.
time, but hopefully we'll moving forward.
Okay.
Any other questions?
And then we do look out 5 years on all of these capital funds, but the only year that's being approved is 2025.
And this is, so our master plan from 2020 has a very ambitious list of projects. I'm really pleased to say that by 2028, if we can accomplish everything on here, we will have accomplished all phase 1 identified priority projects in the master plan. And in 2029, we started slating phase 2 projects. So Teddy remembers all this. So we were hopeful of 5 years, we would accomplish everything in phase 1 in 5 years. Obviously, it's gonna be more like 8 or 10 or 8 or 9, but I think that's still really good progress for a good plan that had a lot of community input.
Any other questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, great. We will pass it over to Kyle
Bless
now
you.
to go over the Public Works 2025 budget requests.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Gotcha. I'm gonna be honest, I'm quite surprised. I thought we were just answering questions if any were brought up, but I'm more than happy to go over the capital improvement budget for 2025. Otherwise I would have created some slides and got into a little more detail. For the slide that's pulled up, I'll kind of go over the fleet replacement. We actually made a lot of progress this year with a lot of aging fleet, specifically in the public works, which I'm very satisfied knowing that we'll hopefully have less down vehicles, which we had to rent from our large equipment distributor, Wagner. So I am confident that we've got the new equipment to support the upcoming winter events. The only caveat is we still are waiting for one of our hook lift dump trucks, which is very important in that role of hauling snow to our facility. We ordered that back in 2023. There's about an 18-month wait time for these trucks now, specifically for the hydraulics. And so that was due in April, and I'm still waiting for it here, approaching this winter. So I'm kind of nervous about that one, but hopefully we'll be able to get that hook lift, which will have the snow bed for the back, which will really help capacity for loading up trucks and hauling that off to our yard, as we are losing kind of real estate for snow storage here each year. So still waiting on that. But I do feel that the $750K for the 2025 will be important, mainly to support kind of our white fleet, which is just the vehicles that the town uses to operate their maintenance, as well as some of the vehicles that are used to leave town for staff. And so this year we've got 2 vehicles that are kind of dead in the water, that are just sitting there because either their turbos blew or their cost to repair is higher than the replacement cost. So it'll be nice to get some of those vehicles back in line for folks to be able to use. So that's really the our goal for 2025. And I know we are looking to see, we got a couple vehicles for parks that we'll be looking to replace as well. And I believe another one would be the additional Zamboni replacement. And so we're going to be considering all those options for 2025. The cost of bus replacement, Joe has done an awesome job on these grants. We've got the EV bus coming in here, hopefully end of year. That was a 2023 carryover. So they're feeling the same pains that we are with bus replacements. It is taking some time once we order to actually get those delivered to our facility. So hopefully an EV bus here shortly. We're actually doing the install for the charger in our facility right now, which is much appreciated to make sure we have that capability once that bus comes in. So we'll be ready to rock once it comes in to be able to charge that bus. So part of that EV charging station that you're seeing there for $150K, some of that was to support that install here within our transit bus bays, and the rest of that is hopefully to be able to provide some charging stations within the public right away throughout town. So right now we're working on that plan to see where those would best fit. And then also looking for an upgraded transformer here at our site, because we are limited to one charging station at Public Works, and we're looking to increase that capacity and utilizing that 150 to be able to do that. For the Southwest Area Plan, the Mahoney to Davis, we've had a couple snags there. That project was supposed to start 2024, but we had some delays with considerations for the Cornet Creek Bridge crossing there. The existing corrugated metal pipe, we were looking to transition into a single span bridge. And obviously, if anyone has had a chance to take a look at that bridge, it does get pretty close to Viking Lodge. And so we've got some pretty good details that we got to try to figure out to make that happen. But we are at this time actually looking to see if we can almost rehab the existing infrastructure to help minimize the delay on that project, so we can start moving forward with that 10-foot path on the south side of Pacific between Mahoney and Davis. My intent is to at least send that out to bid here shortly, to at least look at the sidewalk portion of it, and then trying to figure out what we're going to do with the bridge moving forward. And the main reason of consideration for delays on that bridge is because of the most recent damage to the Mahoney Bridge, which I got to put most of my focus on that right now, specifically for repairs, and then looking for a design and replacement at the end of 2025 and in 2026. So I really need to shift my gears over to that as a priority, but still continue on the Southwest Area Plan, which is budgeted for $1.5 million for 2025. The vehicle storage building, the $250K, that is specifically for the design and consideration for our high-end vehicles that are here at the Public Works. The new grader, the loader, and a lot of the other specialty equipment, like our VACCON, vac truck to assist with water and sewer projects. This is to design an enclosed structure to support those vehicles, to keep them out of the elements from not only intense sun, but also the winter for the hydraulics, just because these are very high-end vehicles, expensive. And something as simple as a hydraulic freeze or water freeze within the equipment can cause significant damage, which I'm hoping to prevent by having this storage building here in the near future. But this specifically is just for the design for 2025, and then 2026 we would go into construction for that facility itself. And the Public Works facility improvements, that is the project that's being supported by a $1.9 million grant for 2025, and that 300 that was presented in 2024. Yeah, very proud of the group for being awarded that. That's a huge help to make this project not only move forward, but to be a success, and really accommodate the transit division that's been really crammed into one little lunchroom, for the duration since I've been here, and hoping to get them a facility that they can actually spread out and have, the bus base to actually support the maintenance of those vehicles, and then the infrastructure to support staff, to make them comfortable here while they're doing their job. So congratulations to Joe. He really was the front runner on that project and did an awesome job getting that 1.9 million to support that project. So that's kind of a summary of those projects that are listed here that you're seeing on this slide. Any questions?
Thank you, Kyle. Questions?
Thanks, Kyle. We'll do street, bridge and alley fund here in a little bit too, if you can stay on the line.
Absolutely.
Zoe, do you want to do the managers?
I would love to, and I know Lance and James are part of this as well, and Lindsay. But quickly, so for the gondola project development, this is part of the cost of our share of Amber's time with SMART. She's been helping facilitate a lot of our work with the gondola and all of the other third-party consultants that we've been using throughout the process. We will also start discussing stations coming up here in the future and having a third-party consultant helping us with those facilitations. For wayfinding, this was coming from our parking study and the need for improved wayfinding. Very grateful to Lindsay, who won a grant for this year for the design aspect. We're utilizing Guide as our third-party consultants. So for next year, we're going to start phasing out that implementation. It is a large investment to update all of our wayfinding. So we're going to phase it throughout multiple years, prioritizing all of our street and parking signs first. And then continue on whatever our consultants provide us after the end of the study that we will receive at the end of this year. For municipal buildings, this was coming from our facilities master plan and the scenario C that town council selected, which would be working with the county on a shared office building at the current Fruin space, and then looking at our other buildings such as Rebecca Hall for our police and Town Hall for town council. And this is finishing up the design and other aspects of those plans so that we can start looking at future implementation in 2026 and beyond, and actually creating some of these buildings. And again, huge thank you to Lance and James, who have taken over spearheading that project. For our Lift 7 project, this is those continuing on with phase 2 and utilizing design workshop, and part of the cost of those, again, finalizing some of those plans and getting us to a place where we can start execution looking into 2026. This is because a lot of the car hinge project is affordable housing that's split between our affordable housing fund for those design costs, but some are capital due to the commercial infrastructure. And I think some are going in parking as well. Yep. For Virginia Placer 2, this is the capital subsidy. So what this is we'll talk about this a little bit more when we discuss our affordable housing fund, but as directed by council, looking at an additional, so there's too many Virginia Placers in my mind, but we have Virginia Placer 2B, which was looking at master leasing and that concept. 2A. 2A was when looking at for town staff and flexible units, as it's very close to the Public Works building for on-call, as we have on-call units in some of our housing projects, and taking those out of those housing projects and creating this structure. However, when we were looking at rent rates, in order to make it feasible within our general fund, it needs to have some infusion for the staff side from the capital fund to make it work. And that's what that number looks like. And then for the municipal building maintenance, this is strictly updating some of our,
I'll speak
okay,
to this
great.
one. It's under the community services department, and it's the cost to maintain our buildings that aren't part of our enterprise funds.
Such as police, Rebecca Hall,
Town
Town
hall, the
hall.
museum.
Et cetera.
Is it under community services?
that-
So the community services department was restructured, and that includes childcare, our rental housing and facilities.
Oh, and facilities.
Yep. So
Okay.
facilities was once broken between public works and rental housing. It is now a single department that oversees the town facilities to help broaden the bandwidth of the staff that we have. Yep.
For the VP2 subsidy, is that just a construction subsidy or is that going to be an annual subsidy?
Construction subsidy. Great. Yep.
All right, so overall, we have transfers out of the capital fund of $8.3 million, which includes that 5% to open space, 15% to reserve capital. The transportation fund needs close to $1 million annually to operate that service. That 3% transferred to the general fund for an administrative fee, and then the transfer to the street, bridge, and alley fund is just to make the street, bridge, and alley fund have a zero balance at the end of the year. So that's what's needed to go into there every year. And then a transfer to the Voodoo fund, and that is for the shed portion of the Voodoo debt payment. So
The street, bridge, and alley is 5.8. That does not include the Mahoney to Davis swap 1.5.
I think it'll make more sense once we go
Got it.
over the street, bridge, and alley
Cool.
fund here. So there's a whole nother set of projects in the street, bridge, and alley fund that Kyle will go over. So our 2025 proposed budget has an ending fund balance of $1.3 million or 13.3% reserves. And we feel comfortable with that, as we mentioned earlier. And we'll move on to the street, alley, and bridge fund if there aren't any more questions on the capital fund. Okay, so this fund is used for various capital improvements related to streets. We have some small funding sources coming into it. The highway user tax and county road and bridge tax for a total of about $420,000 a year. And then, as you just saw, that large transfer from the capital improvement fund of $5.8 million to cover the requested projects in this fund. And then for 2025, we have an approved grant of $250,000 from CDOT for revitalizing Main Street. And if Kyle's still around, I'll let him go over these projects too.
Yeah, sounds good. Just want to check again. You can hear me okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, so starting us off, the Colorado Accessibility, that's our Main Street accessibility ramps that we went through kind of two bid processes for that. The initial bid that came out, we discarded that one and went back out to bid and awarded that project to KSK, which will start April 2025. We were hoping we would get some of those completed this year, but just to accommodate some of the parklets and some of the other construction, we decided to kind of temporarily put a hold on that one and get that started up in the shoulder season in the spring of 2025. And that'll be that bump out concept along Main to really support the accessibility at those corners. That project did come in at just over 2.1 million, 2.2 to be conservative. And we did receive some grant funding for that, and we will continue to seek out some other grant opportunities to assist with that project. But looking forward to starting that one. The design is 100% complete, and then now just looking for the contractor to get started on that again in 2025. Mahoney Bridge replacement, kind of spoke on this one earlier. We had some initial damage this year to the corrugated metal pipe. And I've got a contractor actually coming in, hopefully to start early next week, just to do the repairs so we can keep the existing bridge up to speed and according to CDOT's specifications until we can actually do a complete replacement of that bridge, which we started an emergency design for. And again, we'll continue to seek out, hopefully get some grant opportunities for that replacement of the Mahoney Bridge as well. The 2.5 million is just based on some other bridges that are in the region that were constructed recently and the cost of what occurred for those specific bridges. Miscellaneous projects and improvements, that again falls into several different categories, from streets, sidewalks, to stormwater. That's there just to support some of that infrastructure repairs that you're seeing out right outside Rebecca Hall even today. Some of those street improvements, overlay, sidewalk replacement, old corrugated metal pipe replacements, but that's what that 500K is to support there and assist with. The Royer Gulch culvert replacement, that came up this year. That's a new one that came up by surprise, similar to the Mahoney Bridge. We have an existing corrugated metal pipe that goes across the Royer Gulch, the east spur, the east end of town. And we saw 2 mudslides this year that we had to support and fully clear the street. And I know the county is still working to clear the bike path on the south end of that culvert as well. But this is to start the design and see what can be done to help increase capacity, as well as safeguard to when there is a significant amount of debris coming down the Royer Gulch, to help mitigate the spread of those mudslides. It's not going to be the end all solve, but to help prevent and kind of guide for those high storm events. Stormwater management upgrades, that's also to assist with some of the stormwater, just cleaning the inlets. We get a lot of debris throughout the year that get washed down the street, to back out those stormwater inlets, as well as jet the pipeline, similar to what we do with the sanitary sewer line, just to get them back to capacity so we can best manage these high storm events that occur throughout the year. Streets O&M, the 400K that you're seeing there, that is to assist with crack repairs, pothole repairs, asphalt patches, kind of the effort that you're seeing on the bike path for those crack repairs. But one thing that'll we're going to bring to this to Telluride here in 2025 is a more aggressive crack seal program. And what that is it's just to basically seal the cracks that help prevent water from penetrating into the subgrade. That's where you really see the streets start to disintegrate. Once water gets to that subgrade and softens it up, vehicles that travel over it just create that movement within the flexible pavement. And then that's what you're seeing out there, where those large potholes get created, the alligator sections of streets. So we're hoping to extend the life expectancy of the streets. You can see, we're putting a lot of money to get rid of a lot of these streets that are rated at poor condition. And we just want to make sure we're doing what we can to extend the life expectancy of what we're putting forth with new overlays. The Sunnyside Road crossing and the bike path access, that is an additional 15K just to finish up the design efforts that we put forth on that project. That one has been shelved just till we can get some additional funding and maybe a grant opportunity for that crossing at Sunnyside. But we do have the designs almost complete. That 15K is just to kind of really get that to 100%. So when that opportunity comes forth, we can actually move on it. And then the surface preservation and concrete repair, similar to what you've seen in the past, that is where you see Telluride Gravel doing those large projects, those full complete mill and overlay. That is to support that effort, as well as a goal for 2025 is to move more towards the concrete side of things, upgrading a lot of these cross pans that are blown out, a lot of the curb and gutter that's missing, deteriorated. What I want to make sure that everyone understands, this will not be to replace concrete, that is the property owner's responsibility. This is just for the concrete within the public right of way. That's the town's responsibility. So hopefully you'll see a big effort towards that in 2025, which we haven't seen in the past, specifically for concrete removal and replacement.
Kyle, sorry, can you just reiterate or help me understand what on the Sunnyside Road crossing, why it's getting pushed to 2026?
I can answer that, Kyle. So when we were looking at our capital budget and that reserve policy, we did have to do some gives and takes instead of doing all of our projects. So this is one that we thought we could push to 2026.
Okay, thank you. We can discuss offline. We did have some constituents specifically reach out
definitely did.
about that. We
Mhm.
haven't had a chance to
The
follow
crossing
up.
itself and the design is something that we still need to look at. It is not an ideal crossing from a safety perspective. So we really want to make sure our due diligence in that design and and implementing it is in our execution. So we want to give ourselves a little bit of time in looking at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add on that, there's a lot of other things in play where we're really struggling to get assistance with even maintaining the existing bike path. And so our in-house crew has done that 100%. We're trying to negotiate a contract with 2 different contractors to come in and assist with the bike path between roundabouts. And we've got as far as getting, estimates, kind of a time frame, a schedule from these contractors, and then they just bailed on us. So that has been completely done in-house. So we're kind of falling behind on maintaining the cracks and repairs on the bike path. I would say the in-house guys did roughly 60 to 90 of those already this year. And then, we do need to have that discussion about whether we want that bike path overlaid, and all this falls in line with that crossing. So want to make sure we don't put ourselves too far ahead to where if we commit to one, then we're just tearing or redoing our efforts by implementing a new crossing. And as well as we have to gear up with our in-house to understand that vegetation clearing on the south side. If you drive along that 145 in front of Sunnyside, take a look at that south side and understand the high maintenance that's going to be required to make sure you have that clear vision for that crossing. So that's another thing we have to definitely consider, as well as specialty equipment that will need to keep that vegetation under control. So we make sure we are keeping the public safe.
Slightly related, as Public Works has gone through the waste drainage repairs and maintenance in that same area, I know the hope was that some of that standing water would not be as much of an issue. A recent pass-through seems like hasn't changed much to my perception. Can you just comment on that and see how that relates to these ongoing expenses in that region?
I really can't comment on kind of how that's managed within the valley floor. It's something that is definitely a challenge to the bike path. We kind of just adjust, especially this year, we've seen them completely drain and then come back. And it definitely is not ideal for a bike path just because of the subgrade always being saturated. And so it definitely is a challenge, but there's nothing that the Public Works Department does to manage, how those look or how they're operating the beaver ponds. We just kind of adapt and, make do with what we can with that water around the bike path.
And so that might be more of a Lance question, as it's not mechanical, but more natural in that sense. And I do want to just close the loop on the Sunnyside pathway. As you noted, constituents have directly asked for that. So through Kyle's narrative, it's definitely something that we're moving toward to be successful in 2025, to ensure that it's something we can accomplish appropriately in 2026. Yes, Ashley.
I have a couple questions, but since we're on the topic of the bike path, I know that obviously concrete is a much more expensive material, but I'm just curious if we have explored phasing out the asphalt of the bike path, which is, I think, that material is why we see like the cracks and the dips and stuff like that, and moving into a concrete material. I think that, you know, a lot of specifically bikers choose not to utilize the bike path because of its surface condition, and then are ultimately pushed onto the narrow highway. So I'm just curious if we've started thinking about that for, you know, phasing that in future budgets to start replacing that into maybe a better material than just the asphalt.
And, you know, concrete is definitely preferred. I really don't think that it would be a solution for where the beaver ponds exist. Concrete is a rigid material where asphalt is flexible. So at that location, asphalt actually makes a little more sense because it's more giving for its flexibility. But either way, once that subgrade gets saturated and it moves that much, there's not a material that, you know, would be successful along that stretch. And so, you know, maybe, you know, is there another location or elevated or something different that could be done? But that'll be an ongoing issue. One with just the saturation with that area, as well as the vegetation. There's a bunch of locations where you got roots growing and it'll push up concrete, it'll push up asphalt. So along that stretch, I think we'll continue to look at, you know, options. But you are correct. If there's that opportunity between town and before it gets to the beaver ponds, you know, concrete is a good alternative, but also very expensive. Roughly, I would say 3 times the cost of asphalt. And the last bid I got to overlay the stretch between the roundabouts was just over 1 million to overlay that bike path, just for reference.
Okay.
So I think in that comment, it's something we can explore while looking at the modeling for repairs compared to what a replacement of concrete might mitigate and what that nexus is.
Yeah, because I certainly understand it's 3x the cost, but it's like if it's results in better usage of the product and then maybe results in a longer
Lower maintenance
life,
costs.
it's like then it might be a beneficial for us budgetarily. My next question is, I don't know if anyone else was shocked, but I was shocked at $2.5 million for the Mahoney Bridge. I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around that number a little bit. And then you mentioned that budget was based off of what?
3 million.
Oh, why is it?
I
3
had it
million?
wrong on the slide. It's actually 3 million.
Oh, never. Oh, great.
Even higher.
Cool. 3 million.
So yeah, that includes
yeah.
the 3 million includes the design. 2.4 is the engineer's estimate to remove and replace. So that's not to repair the existing Mahoney. That is complete removal and replacement, brand new bridge.
I'm still shocked by that, I guess. And then I'm just curious, you mentioned that there was a similar bridge or similar bridges that you used to help guide that estimate. I'm just curious if that was that was how the estimation were done, or if we actually have a bid. And I don't know, I'm just shocked by that price tag. I
Based
guess.
on a
Sorry if
similar,
I'm taking it back.
yeah, similar bridge, and I'll get the name of the bridge and I can provide that to you. It was a CDOT bridge that was just completed, and I want to say it was just recent, early 2024. I'll get you the name of the bridge and I can provide kind of where that estimate's based off of.
We haven't received bids, so hopefully we'll come back lower than that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Based on the last bids I've just received for some of our projects, it's I was surprised too. I mean, I've actually been surprised at a lot of bids that come in for this region just because they're well above what I would have expected.
Any other questions, Ashley?
That's a fancy bridge.
It's gonna be fancy. Any other questions for Kyle? Kyle, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
So the Street Alley and Bridge Fund, when it was originally created, they were hoping that it would build up a balance and be able to use that, but I think it's always been completely funded by the Capital Improvement Fund. So on this full spreadsheet of the Street Bridge and Alley Fund, you can see that $5.8 million transfer from the Capital Fund is needed just to make the ending fund balance zero in the street, alley and bridge fund for 2025. Oh, and then this is from the capital fund, that transfer coming out of there into the street, bridge and alley fund. All right.
If y'all don't have any more questions, we can move to the reserve capital. Okay. So the reserve capital improvement fund is fairly new. We talked about it a little bit earlier. This formed from the open space revenues that we repurposed, putting 15% into this fund. Whenever we created it, we left it pretty broad. So it's used for various capital improvements, including but not limited to improving transportation services, improving the town's wastewater facility treatment, acquisition of property for, and the construction of employee affordable housing. It's funded by 15% of sales and use tax, property taxes, motor vehicle tax, business and building licenses, as well as rent. Staff recommends this fund be reserved for the future of the gondola and wastewater treatment plant. So kind of use it to fund these bigger projects that we have coming up. The 2024 projected revenues, $3 million. In 2024, we did do a transfer of $2.1 million into the wastewater fund. In 2025, we've spoken with our municipal advisors and they have requested or recommended, to do no transfers and to just kind of hold on and build up this fund balance for these future projects. They've been great and we are going to continue working with them on kind of what to do with the future of this fund. And then with that, the projected ending fund balance, we think will be around 4.2, just estimating those taxes. And since it is sort of new and a few of you might not have seen this before, a few of you have seen this a lot. It's just kind of a breakdown of where all these funds are going. So you'll see on the right-hand side, the capital fund is sending 15% of the RET up to the reserve capital improvement fund. And on the left, the general fund, you'll see the sales and use, property tax, and business licenses. 15% of that is going to the reserve capital. And then the remainder of the 5% of all of those is going to the open space. And then this is just kind of a roll up of what we did for 2024 and kind of what we're projecting 2025 and onwards.
And that $2.1 million transfer for this year from the wastewater fund. And then just that fund balance building up without any projected transfers for right now.
And then you can just see the transfer to the reserve capital, and that's just those RET numbers coming out of capital into the reserve capital improvement fund.
That's all we have for today.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I thought it was thorough and great. Any questions from council? Zoe, do you have anything to
No, again,
add?
thank you. And we have plenty more budget ahead of us. So I'm glad that we can make this one clear for you.
Great.
Thanks, staff.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Nice work. And then Zoe, so are you okay to move to action items?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll just give a brief introduction. So on Thursday, September 5th of 2024, SMART placed on the November ballot a question known as question 3A, seeking authorization to increase sales, lodging, and property tax to fund the operation, maintenance, and capital of the current and future gondola. With Fair Campaign Practice Act, that it significantly limits what the town may do to advocate for the passage of any question on the ballot. But the FCPA, again, the Fair Campaign Practice Act, does allow the town to adopt a resolution advocating for the passage of 3A and report on the passage of said resolution. And so that is what Kevin provided to council and for us to approve.
Great. And I just want to make sure everyone is clear that This is not a discussion item for us as a ballot issue. It is as simple as a vote. And if we do vote to approve it, I will read the resolution into the record.
Thank you, Mayor Erko.
So Kevin, if you're okay with it, do I go right to asking for a motion? Or is that the easiest way to do this? It's a little different.
So a motion's always appropriate, Mayor. This is not a public hearing on this issue. It's action item passage of a resolution. We don't have to read it into the record. If you
Yeah,
want-
I don't have to read that whole resolution.
No, well, let me back up though and make sure. Did council get the email last night at about 4 PM? And sorry, we were working on the direction we received on, I believe it was Tuesday, to get this on for an agenda item on Thursday. So I sent that out to you and also to Tiffany. I think it's been uploaded to the document center late yesterday afternoon. If you haven't had a chance to read it, maybe take a minute now and do it, but maybe everyone was able to see that email yesterday afternoon.
If no one has read it, let me know now and please take a couple minutes to read it. We were early, so we have some time.
And I will also mention, we've done similar resolutions in the past, not very often. The last one I could find was for the Pearl property question, which went before the voters in 2013. This is a little bit different because this is not specifically a town question. This is a smart ballot question, but nevertheless, you are permitted under the Fair Campaign Practice Act to take an action item by resolution expressing your opinion, yes or no, and asserting that opinion to the electorate and urging a vote one way or the other. There are other limits to the Fair Campaign Practice Act. I don't think we need to go into them right now, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. We typically have also put out a memorandum for town elections. This is not a town election, but if you want me to recirculate that Fair Campaign Practice Act memo, I can certainly do that after this meeting, just so you all are familiar with the limitations of it. Basically, public money can't be spent on advocating for or against a ballot issue or a candidate for office. That's the
Right, but
basic limitation.
We as private individuals
Mhm.
may advocate on our own time.
Absolutely. And even, your own time.
On town issued iPad.
Yeah, you want to be careful using technology that's been provided by the town. So a
Right.
computer that's been provided to you, an iPad that's been provided to you. If you were using that on a ballot issue, there are some lines there that you're probably crossing.
We won't use the iPad.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so it's really simple of, that action item of 2A. And if we have a motion to approve it and support it, or a motion to deny it, that's kind of where we're at.
I can make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Telluride, Colorado, supporting a yes vote on question 3A referred by the San Miguel Authority for Regional Transportation, seeking voter approval for a 80.82% sales tax increase, a 1.25 lodging tax increase, and a 1.336 mill levy increase.
We have a motion from Mian and the second was from Elena. That was Jesse Ray. Mian, how do you vote?
Me and yes.
Yes.
Elena, yes.
Neva, yes.
Ashley, yes.
Dan, yes.
Teddy, yes, it is approved unanimously. And Kevin, you said I do not have to read the resolution?
If you want to, you can certainly take time to read it.
No, I don't. Last thing I need to do is hear myself talk. You guys hear plenty out of me.
And as I mentioned, we are able to, as we would for, many of our town actions, put a press release out. So
Right.
Lindsay will be doing
And,
that.
and I'll, without reading it, I just want to make sure, if anyone's listening out there in the world, that we are supporting that yes vote on question 3A for the gondola, because we think it's important. Seeing no other discussion on that, we will move on to adjournment by mutual consent.
Yay.
Done.
Thanks, guys.
I dissent.
It's gonna get a little squirrely, I imagine.
So I think, Mayor, we provided the background on this issue last council meeting on the 17th, and you requested that you take a look at your calendars to look at dates for the appeal of the Hart decision on the Tower House townhomes. I think Clerk Kavanaugh provided to you some of the limitations on dates, which are specifically about transcription constraints, constraints. Tiffany, is there anything else you want to provide on that front?
No, just that I think the earliest date that we could have the record available would be October 21st. Because we have to do it 10 days in advance. So really, I would release the record October 10th, but the meeting couldn't happen until the 21st.
So looking late October, early November, but I know also people have travel constraints. And we will have 2 members of council that have a conflict of interest on this.
Okay. Do we want to try to tie this into either the budget meeting on the 24th or council on the 29th
I think
of October?
24th works well for me, especially since it's a shorter council meeting
Okay.
with a budget.
Be in town on the 24th,
Mm.
Same for me.
but I will be on the 29th.
Okay.
I will be here on
What's 28 and 30 look like? I don't know if I want to tie it to a regular council meeting because it's a
Yeah.
long day.
29th meeting is looking really big.
Yeah, I agree.
Can we do the 30th?
Are you guys gone that week of the 21st through the 25th? You're gone that week.
I am only gone the 24th and 25th.
Okay.
We need 5, right?
Mhm.
I think we all.
Yeah, you're gonna have a conflict on with 2, so you really.
Yep.
And remember, for an appeal, extraordinary majority is required if you're gonna reverse remand.
I
So,
can make the 28th work. I have them.
Or we can look to November.
Or we can look to the
Nope.
following week.
Yeah, but I'm leaving the,
Well,
see the
Can 30
6th, I
work?
think.
day after the council meeting.
Yeah, that works for me.
If we're all in town for that.
Works for me, Dan.
We make 100% sure.
It's usually ordered, yeah.
We're looking at the 30th, October 30th.
Yep.
I would rather not on Halloween. so-
That should work.
Also, I'll be dressed up on
30th?
Halloween.
30th, October 30th. Would you like to start at 9 a.m.?
Yes.
You want to do
Okay.
9, 10? 9.
I'm okay with 10.
Yeah, totally.
10
10 on the 30th?
Yeah. 10.
Love it.
Okay.
I would plan at least 3 to 4 hours. Oh, cool.
4 hours.
How many hours?
I would say 3 to 4.
Really?
I mean, in the past, when there's been this big of an appeal, it's gone 3 to 4 hours.
Okay.
It's on our own project.
I think there's gonna be a lot of public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10 a.m., October 30th.
Got it.
Set?
Thank you.
I'll get it
Yes.
noted.
This one's, okay.
Thanks,
Alright.
everyone.
Do I guess I will re-adjourn the meeting.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I forgot.